I researched the top 10 highest paid entry-level jobs in the United States and took it a step further and interviewed professionals in each of those industries to give you more of a feel if the job's really worth it. In part 1 of the series, we cover the following 2 careers, private equity and consulting, to give you more of a feel as to how the jobs are actually like. What is your name, what is your age, and what is your current position?
My name is Angela. I'm currently 24. I'm currently a researcher at Mount Sinai, but previously I was a financial analyst at a private equity firm.
What does a financial analyst do? Like, how was your experience there?
It depends, if you work in investment banking or private equity or a different type of financial company, the role will change a little bit. But for me, a lot of what I did was working on Excel models, like financial models of companies that we're interested in investing in, and also putting that into PowerPoint presentations.
How did you first discover private equity? Like, where did you hear about that and all that stuff?
So I had no idea what private equity was in college until I did this program called Girls Who Invest. It's a nonprofit organization. It's also an internship program where basically your sophomore summer of college. It's at 3 different campuses. They're all like colleges around the United States, and they give you free like finance courses. And after the 4 weeks of like finance courses, which is all paid for, they match you with an internship at a really great bank or private equity firm. So that's actually how I landed my first job. I was matched to this internship at this company, got a return offer, and then I just landed my job.
What were the hours and like how was that? I feel like for a lot of folks that don't work in finance or haven't had experience in private equity, like, do you mind sharing more information on like what that breakdown is?
I would say as a summer intern, I would usually get in at 9 a.m. and I would leave at 9 p.m. I didn't need to work on weekends as much. And then when I became a full-time professional, I would still get in at 9 a.m. every day because that's just when everybody got in. I would usually be done by like 11 or 12, like 11 p.m. or 12 a.m. And I was usually expected to work on Saturdays as well.
I saw a podcast, I think around a week ago, and they said something around, I think the guy had been an investment banker, and he said like the email communication turnaround time was expected to be like in the minutes when you get a client email. Is that true or false?
At my firm, it wasn't true, but you would be expected to reply like pretty soon. I got really good at responding to emails like ASAP.
What was your expectation versus reality of working in private equity?
My expectation was that it would be really glamorous because it's private equity and it's finance and you're just in an industry full of money. I would say in reality, it was really glamorous. Like they would pick me up in these really fancy cars to business meetings. And yeah, I mean, it was just very obvious that I was in an industry that was very rich and full of like very powerful people, a lot of money. Another expectation that I had was that I would be working a lot, and that was also really true. I didn't expect that I would be working as much as I did, or that I would be working like throughout the night on some nights, and that the turnaround time would be really quick for certain projects. Like, for example, for my firm, every Friday night, we would be expected to turn in like this investment presentation that we would be presenting to the whole entire firm on Mondays. I didn't expect that deadline to be so rigid where like, it'd be a Friday night at like 11 p.m. when everybody's out partying and having fun, but I would just be sitting on my computer like trying to finish this presentation that would just be sent to my company. I think something else that I didn't really expect was how difficult it could be to be a woman in this industry. I knew that in private equity, there just aren't a lot of women in like senior roles. That wasn't really clear to me until I came to my firm and there was only one woman who was in a senior role. And like I remember so many times when I was either on business trips or I was in an email chain with a client, they would just assume that I wasn't actually a financial analyst, that I was just an administrator or somebody else like who wasn't involved in the finance aspect of the firm. And a lot of times I had to prove to my clients or to my team that I am a woman but I have a lot to contribute to my firm, and like I am well educated. I have a lot of knowledge in this specific industry and I can just like speak up and contribute.
Breaking into private equity, how difficult is that?
Yeah, so most private equity firms don't hire people straight out of college. The company that I worked at was an exception. They hired a few analysts out of college every year. And for me, it was easy because I was just matched with this company as an intern through the Girls Who Invest program. But normally the process is that you have to work in investment banking for a few years, and then you apply to a private equity firm during that time.
Do you have any other tips or advice for folks who are maybe in college and wanting to break into PE straight from there?
Definitely like do your research on which private equity firms actually accept students straight out of college because there aren't that many. Take finance courses in college, like do well and rely on your connections. I think in general, the finance industry is very relationship based. Look into your alumni network, see who works at a private equity firm that you're interested in and talk to them, like reach out to them on LinkedIn, email them, do whatever you can to show your interest. And I think that'll like really go a long way.
That's enough about private equity. What made you decide to switch from finance over to research in medicine?
Yeah, so I was an economics major in college and I really liked it. That's why I decided to pursue finance like right after college. I worked in the healthcare team of my firm and I was exposed to a lot of like different healthcare companies, ranging from like medical technology companies, like medical software companies. And I realized after learning more about those companies that I was just really interested in like connecting with patients. And I also took a few like health economics courses in college and that got me interested in the science aspect of it. Yeah, I just decided to pursue a few like medical related volunteering experiences and that led me to medicine.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a long path and I'm still like very much in the beginning.
Angela, last question for you. Any other advice or tips for someone who is, either trying to break into finance, do medicine, or just change their career?
I would say to follow your heart and do what you love. One thing that I really thought about when I was making this career switch was let me think about where I would be in 30 years, what my life would look like if I were to continue down the path that I currently am doing. Would I be happy or would I not? Would I have regrets or no? And if I feel like I did, then I would change something. I would do something different. I mean, I think change is really scary for a lot of people, but it's just easier to live life knowing that you love your job.
Thank you, Angela. What is your name, age, and what is your current position?
So my name is John. I'm 26 years old. I was an associate consultant at Bain. Before that, I was a consultant at Deloitte. Recently just left to make a pivot to private equity.
How did you stumble into consulting? How did you get into that field?
When I was graduating college, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was an economics major, so a lot of my friends were going into consulting. Sounded kind of cool. It's like pretty generalist path. You're working on a lot of different types of projects and industries. So for me, it's just not really having a good idea what I wanted to do. It sounded like a good opportunity to kind of figure out the things that I was good at, things I wasn't good at, things I enjoyed. So that's really the biggest reason why I chose consulting.
What does a consultant do? Maybe if you could break that down into either what you do in a day or like a week and how you structure your time there.
Sure. So I think consulting is pretty broad. The work that you do will really vary depending on the firm you're at and the type of consulting they specialize in. So if you're working at like a McKinsey or a Bain or BCG, the work is going to be more analytical, strategic versus like a Deloitte or a Big Four company where it's going to be more like implementation, operating model type work, so more qualitative. Generally, I'd say consulting is these companies provide an extra service to a variety of different companies. If they have any types of issues or problems, we'll go in and try to, figure out a way that they can solve it and provide any types of recommendations. So the work is generally like project based. So you're typically staffed on a project for like 2 to 3 months. The work will really vary depending on the client you're working with and their requirements. In terms of like day to day, you're really just doing different types of research and data analysis, making PowerPoint slides to synthesize and communicate those insights. And then you'll also have like a lot of meetings internally and with the client to get on the same page.
Really insightful, man. When you initially were looking for different positions, you didn't really know what you wanted to focus on. How is your expectation versus the reality of being a consultant when you actually started working the job?
Yeah, so I guess when I first started at Deloitte, I didn't really have a clear idea of the different types of consulting. And so I just figured every consulting project was pretty similar. You're traveling, you're having meetings with clients, you're adding real value. And I think the reality is, depending on the firm you're working at, it might not be the case. Like generally the types of consulting that are really propped up, that are talked about a lot, the strategic types of projects, those are mostly available at MBB. And so if you're not working at MBB, the projects are going to vary a lot. So when I was at Deloitte, they were more like year-long tech implementation projects, so more like IT and programming and project management, things like that. And so that wasn't as appealing to me as the more like technical and analytical work that MBB did. So that was why I pivoted. Other than that, I'd say like traveling is definitely like a big difference in expectation versus reality. So everyone thinks that consulting travel is super glamorous. You're going around the world, you're staying at these nice hotels and flying first class. And I think that is true to some degree, but it gets old pretty quickly, especially you're working on the job, you're working while you're traveling on a plane, and sometimes your projects aren't located in really good places, right? So I have friends who have projects in, the middle of nowhere in the Midwest. And if you're going there once a week for 2 or 3 months, that can get old pretty quick.
Any tips for someone who's interested in pursuing a career in consulting, maybe if they're in university or if they're trying to get their first consulting position?
Yeah, I'd say probably number one is prepare for the case study interviews super early. It's not one of those things that you can kind of just study and prepare for a week in advance, especially if you're coming from a major or background that's not very business or strategic related. It does take quite a bit of reps and practice to really get the hang of it. There's a lot of books and good free resources that you can leverage. If you're in college, you always have other people who are interested in consulting that you can practice and case with. And if you're not in college, there's also online websites that you can schedule case interviews with random people. That helped me a lot when I was recruiting for Bain out of college. And so generally preparing for that early is probably my biggest tip. And then two, just having a good idea early on of the type of consulting you want to do. If it's strategy, then if it's in a specific industry, there are certain firms that specialize in that. So doing your research to figure out which firms those are and if they fit, your expectations. And
how are the hours as a consultant?
Again, I think it will vary by the project and the type of consulting that you do. So when I was at Deloitte, the hours are pretty chill, like 40 hours a week. A lot of that was because the projects tended to be longer. So like a year long, you have a lot more time to get things done. So the deadlines weren't as demanding. But when I was at Bain, things moved a bit fast, especially when you're working with commercial clients. And so generally my hours are around anywhere from 60 to 65 hours a week. It's definitely not as great. The positive there is you do get times in between projects where you're on what we call the beach, where you're still waiting to get staffed, relax, and not do anything before you're staffed on the next project. So good way to refresh and recharge.
Great. Thank you, John. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. If you enjoyed hearing from Angela and John about their careers, please show some love and comment down below. We'll catch you on the next video.